GM Dakota, how are you today?
GM, I'm pretty good.
Awesome. We'll get started shortly as we wait for Jared to join us as well. Okay, let's get it started. Thank you all for being here. This session is recorded. Hopefully, we can provide a nice informational piece for our listeners on InvArch and what they're doing here in the space. So, welcome, Dakota. We have also our wonderful Jared from Astar team, who will be co-hosting as well. For myself, I'm Rams. Um, just a dude who doesn't know how to read white papers, so I'm hoping I get to learn a lot from Dakota today.
I mean, far from a dude, I'll say that you're. I mean, in my eyes, like for like a grassroots legend in the space, or like active everywhere, like in every community, not just your own. So, um, really honored to be here. Really awesome to be speaking with you as well.
Thanks, Dakota. Too nice, too nice. Well, let's get it started. So, uh, let's begin with InvArch. Dakota, can you give us a little rundown and introduction on what you're doing? We know it's related to NFT ownership primitives. So go ahead. We'll let you take the microphone.
Yeah. So, mind you, over the year, I've been working on getting this description a bit more concise each time. But in a broad nutshell, InvArch is the leading edge layer one for the creator economy, which features very advanced, very novel, very different from what we're used to today, NFT primitives, which combined with some of our other solutions that we've developed, provide really powerful innovations and solutions for DAOs, featuring like IP-based solutions as well. So it gets kind of dynamic, but the overall scope of the network is to provide, at the lowest level possible, a very flexible infrastructure for individuals to not just store their own files, make their own NFTs and build with those NFTs, build like they haven't been able to do before, but also to be able to collaborate with other individuals to engage in really lucrative economic engagements, such as derivative works, or let's say like we're very familiar with, you have an NFT and you sell it and someone sells it again, there's royalties. But what we haven't really talked about is what happens if you have an NFT and then someone makes a derivative of that NFT, and then still trustless and streamlined at the protocol level is then any, let's say, like income that is occurred based off that derivative, guaranteeing the original creator royalties from that as well. And I mean, you could get a little more wonky. Let's say if you had an original, like something that you had made, whether it's code or art or anything, and someone made a derivative of that, and someone made a derivative of that, and so on and so forth. And you can have this continuous, near infinite connection of like tethered royalty streams. Mind you, your share would probably get a little bit smaller as the ladder gets higher, but um, it's really interesting here because what we have created is the ability for these primitives, which are very composable. Individuals are able to build together, combine these primitives together, break them apart if needed, but collaborate. We have these multi-class fungible tokens, which is a whole other wonky thing I'm sure we'll talk about later, but it helps to streamline anything from ownership over an asset, so distributed ownership, fractional ownership, but then also tailored like needs, such as just access rights, read rights, the rights to edit something, not necessarily ownership, the rights to lease something, to sublease something. So it gets really cool what's all possible. And maybe to some, it might sound a little dry, but it's really powerful. And we get really excited, especially now as now that we have our parachain Tinkernet that's live on Kusama. We now have this kind of like this playground. Very excited that it's live and available for everyone, but it might sound a little selfish, but we're really excited that it's there and live for ourselves to also build on. And we're in this period now where we're working on things such as UDL, the Dallas CDK, and GitArch, which are products of ours built on top of our tech, which kind of there's two examples of what can be built on top of the network, but they've received a lot of really strong feedback, and it's been really exciting getting people kind of hip to what it is that we're building and its potential and all of that and what it can do for the future of the creator economy. Yeah.
It is super exciting. Being myself an NFT collector, art based and music recently, and building my own collection, I have a deep interest in this. So this is just my opinion. Of course, it is exciting seeing this tethered, royalty system and being built. Also, as well as the permissions set on it, the editing and all that stuff. I can't wait. I really can't wait to see it sort of grow out, and hopefully I could partake as well.
Oh, you will.
Definitely. I'm not going to plug in my project right now because that would get me fired. But anyway, let's continue. Jared, you want to take on the next topic?
Well, yeah, I do, but I have I don't know how many questions I have from that intro right there, Dakota. But it's amazing. I guess just a personal interest, and I really don't think this is the next topic we were going to talk about, but I just want to know a little bit about Yodel DAO. I don't know if you can talk about that a bit for me.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's also great
I'm
to hear
lost,
from you again
so.
too. I hope you've been great since the Mexican restaurant in New York.
Yeah, I feel a little better than that night. So,
but thank you for the question to Yodel DAO. We're really excited about it. Just to the feedback and the support has been amazing. Originally, it's funny because what happened was our designer, we had made a website, like redesign, branding change from kind of like a darker theme to a lighter theme with some color changes. And with it, our old avatars didn't really make sense. So our designers started making new ones. And I had this as a doodle gav that her name was Jemmy from the blockchain she had made, and I repped it as my PFP for a long time in the space. And so he looked at that. He was like, cool, like it. He didn't even say anything. He just sent over my Udel and was like, what do you think? And of course, I was like, hell yeah. And so then sent it to the other team members, like theirs, and I just immediately noticed just that like they had like this vested interest in these pieces in this art because of like the sense of personality that they had and like the personal connection because it was them, and I thought it was really neat and like that was cool. It was a separate thought, but then I guess that light bulb went off and realized that it was a really prime opportunity to introduce our technology to individuals in a very refreshing way. And with that being said, so the Udals NFT collection is, I know everyone says this, but it really isn't your average NFT collection. I'm very confident to say that this is as far from a speculative based collection as they possibly come, just because all of this, I believe, all this excitement over the collection has come from the interest and the tech behind it. I think people are kind of a bit exhausted. There's some really amazing artwork, which don't get me wrong, I'm jump into, but overall, this mood in the market, people are really antsy for something strong, I guess you could say. And with that, like what we saw was there was there was some interest in the Udall's collection, but when we had unveiled the Dallas CDK and introduced that to everyone, which is a very powerful tool for DAOs that essentially imagine it like a DAO launcher that Udall DAO will be using. It'll be showcasing, and its holders will be the very first to beta test and to trial out. So it was when we shared this that we saw this really huge increase in attention and just commotion and support, which is amazing because that is a huge uptick in attention for all the right reasons, which is for the tech and the excitement over it. So it's been amazing. Udals, like I said, using the DAO CDK, which I might as well talk about later. Udals they're really cool. So the NFTs themselves, I'll say from an art perspective, they're very cool because, like I said, they are personalized, or they have the ability to be personalized. So there's custom Udals, there's semi-custom Udals. That is a very efficient, fast path to get a Udal that either looks like you or just maybe has maybe you're game planning, because I know there's some DJs out there who are crafting up or they're requesting some really unique items that they believe will be really awesome in the future. Then there's all of the randomly generated utils, which now all of these like traits, everything from like their shirts to their hair, the head, like headpiece, accessory, other possible accessories like possibly on their shoulders or backgrounds. All of these different things are all going to be randomly generated and applied. So some people likely get some utils that kind of look like them. Some people might get some funky, interesting looking utils, but it'll be really interesting, I think, because we'll see. Like we always talk about like these like resource economy, but I think it'll be cool because we're going to see this like trait scarcity at play, and it's not necessarily like games where there's this limited number and you know you have to like mine or do all these things. Like it's a bit different because the incentive here is people really want something that represents them and looks like them. Dustin is a great example. Shout out to him for repping. It's his first NFT profile that he's repped on social media, or at least on Twitter. Again, that's because it represents him. So on the art side, I think that's really cool and powerful, and giving people the ability to, on the secondary market in the future, trade for different traits, accessories, and components. I wouldn't be surprised to see some things go for. We'll see what happens, but I think that's really exciting. But on the technical side, these NFTs are going to give exclusive, like multi-layered, tiered access throughout the DAO. The DAO like is powered using the DAO CDK, so hear us out. But you're literally just going to use Discord like you've always used it. That's going to be the user interface that you're dealing with. But in the back end, what's called like the fat stack is in the fat layer. So what back there, what's happening is everything like all on-chain governance, even on-chain treasury, roles, permissions, all of that is handled on-chain and is handled directly using multi-sig calls through the Discord UI, performing multi-sig calls on a bot that actually owns the server, not an individual entity. So everything's decentralized. Everything from the server ownership, governance, it's all on chain. So it's a true DAO, but with a UI that the world is already familiar with. And while we will provide our own custom UI in the future to provide a truly decentralized and, if ever need be, censorship resistant alternative, but for now, we are very excited for providing this really familiar gateway into not just Web3, but just the very practical power of DAOs.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's always kind of hard to figure out that balance between centralized and decentralized, right? You got to make something, and then you build on top of it, right?
But I think there's everything has different approaches. Like there's certain everything's its own unique equation variable, with different parameters in there. I think there's certain things like, for example, InvArch that we're making as a decentralized censorship resistant alternative to GitHub. If our approach there had been like, I don't know how we pull it off, but let's say if we were like, yeah, that's everything on chain, we'll connect it to GitHub, and it would probably, it might like be a little ironic that way. But where it's something like with DAOs and community building, and obviously no past recent imminent threat censorship wise to things like that, I think it's important, especially with Web3, I think it's important in general to always build long term. You always build for the future, not what you think it's going to be today, tomorrow, but you build it for what you believe it's going to be in 5, 10, 100 years from now. So you build with that in mind, but just remember, you got to get people in the door. And I think that with the DAO CDK approach, because we could take more time. It would delay obviously some things because we have to build a whole front end and all that stuff. We could do all of that, but then we have to focus on getting all of these people. Like now, it's not just about, hey, here's the power of the DAO CDK. It's, hey, here's this. You want to leave Discord and come over here? Like, it's not that some people wouldn't, but it's a whole nother game versus people. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's no change of experience for them. The only thing is some addition of features, really. And we think that as far as at least getting people, a lot of people who might otherwise just have no idea what Web3 is, but get them to use what Web3 is. And I think this is an interesting approach, to say the least.
Yeah, no, NFTs, it's a ticket to mass adoption for sure. You did kind of mention GitArch there, and I think that's one of the main interest that I saw, because you create a diagram of how it can work with different protocols. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. Like,
yeah, so GitArch. Again, I know I'm biased here, but GitArch is going to be huge. I'm very, very excited for this. The whole team is. And shout out to Tinker Gabe, fellow founder of InvArch. He's in here as well right now. Not only was like the possibilities of InV4 of a protocol made it to where any file can be stored as an NFT, but which is common already, but like this tree-like composability. So like I don't know, you can have files, or you can have a folder with files, and inside that folder can be another folder with files and folder, and so on and so forth. With NFTs, it's not like that, and so we asked ourselves regarding like if we just want raw composability, then regarding the internet as it is today, then like what does that look like? And it's that tree structure, that tree file structure. And so that's what we built, and it's extremely composable. It's there's pretty much no restraint. It's just like files and folders on your computer. So it's really, really awesome. But with that, Gabe, Gigabrain over there had the idea of, I think one day he's just like, hey, like I want to use this to, I want to push changes directly to the chain. I want to use getting all this stuff. And at first, like because of the file structure, I was like, boom, boom, like that all like matched up, and I was like, it's a good idea. And originally like focused on just the tooling at first, for like connecting Git with or integrating InV4 our protocol with Git. But talked around and just understood like the potential that this could have. And we didn't realize like just how many teams out there were kind of antsy for an alternative to GitHub. We were actually a bit surprised by that. We thought it was going to be like an odd question to ask, but got a lot of great feedback, and we just kind of decided like, there's a lot of possibilities, a lot of things that InvArch that can be built on top of InvArch. Like just internally, we can get lost for hours just talking about the different things. But if we were to buckle down and work on something, just a main thing, our first product, something to be really powerful, and we asked ourselves what would that be, and GitArch is definitely the answer. It's really cool. So going back again, like the NFTs, our primitives are just extraordinarily composable. I mean, so far, really, there's no really like limitations or restrictions that we've encountered. And again, thanks to Gabe. So Gabe tailored up the InV4 Git tool, which is a Git helper. It integrates our InV4 protocol with the native Git protocol. So Git is already a distributed protocol. It's already on your computer as well. But what happens now is because of this, and here's like the beauty of it all is developers are able to use Tinkernet as a decentralized, like censorship resistant alternative for storing their code compared to something like GitHub. But GitArch is what will really like provide a lot of powerful tools and enhancements that when it comes to interoperability and working with other chains is where things get like truly exciting. So using the InV4 Git tool, individuals are able to store their code repository, so you can turn your repository into an NFT. So like, for example, the Astar code base, you could turn it into an NFT, the Git object into an NFT on InvArch or using GitArch. You could store it there. You could have your developers, like let's say like dApp developers, so you could have them who are writing like smart contracts, working. Let's say there's even joint collaboration, and they can handle like multi-sig collaboration calls like using. This is very similar to like if you were to set up who's able to work on a repository, who's not, who needs to, if they were to send a PR, what needs to be reviewed and who can just fire away. All those can be set, easy to go. But I want you to imagine a future of like safer code. And with that, so imagine a smart contract and code base that is being written. It's on GitArch, it's been stored there. And we have, let's say, thanks to Fala Network, we can have built-in like automated auditing tools that are able to audit these smart contracts, and it's able to audit these smart contracts, which, pending a connection, can then immediately be deployed from GitArch onto Astar network or any other EVM chain, but would be able to deploy onto Astar Network's XVM and connect with whether that smart contract was for EVM or for Cosmos or wherever it may be, or for WASM, being able to get it out there. But again, safer code deployment, which is really powerful. And just in the case with like Tornado Cash, it's one thing to deploy. Obviously, there's still problems when it comes to we've seen like RPC endpoints. There's still these centralized points of failure. So while the smart contract of Tornado Cash out there was still deployed, that doesn't get taken down. But connection and access to use this code, to use the services, and all of that, controversy aside, it's the principle here. It's that was censored and inaccessible. Whereas with GitArch, it's truly unstoppable code because GitArch or Tinkernet, our parachain of Kusama, was, along with GM or Die, the first parachain to implement a light client solution. And this was very important to us because with a light client solution, RPC endpoints and reliance on those providers, it's no longer a central single point of failure for this system. So this is when we start to realize this, I'll say for better or for worse, this system of truly unstoppable code that is able to be deployed to exist. The code base itself exists in this tamper-free, censorship-resistant domain, which can then be deployed directly onto any other chain, and then, which I know, like clients are in Astar's future as well. But then, of course, any of these like products or dApps codes, and not just like outside of EVMs. Like you can, it doesn't have to be a dApp now. Like you can store the code base for any application or software now using Web3. But deploy these things. You have safer code auditing tools, and it just is really, really powerful. You can also have, let's say, brain fart, treasuries, or like treasuries, sub treasuries that are assigned on GitArch for like code maintenance as well, which can be really powerful. And it just allows people to create this fully decentralized system that, if wanted, if desired, can very seamlessly turn your code base into a DAO. And then it just immediately has multi-layer DAO governance capabilities over top of its ownership. And then the ability, like the features that code can tap into, everything that is, every service that is provided on something like GitHub, thanks to the different parachains and protocols in our ecosystem, we're able to create this kind of like the super DApp for developers that lets them plug into all these different services to experience everything on GitHub and then some. For example, we have IP staking. So individuals will be able to stake their repositories and then gain income off of network inflation based off of community support for those code bases, which how those funds are used are optional. But again, code base maintenance is a big thing. Code maintenance would be a really, say, powerful idea there. But in a nutshell, that's GitArch. Yeah.
In a nutshell, for sure. Wonderful stuff, especially the censorship resistant topic, because we also what happened to Tornado Cash, and it's been on people's mind. It's still going through, I think it's going through the courts as well. So that's going to be a topic for sure for the long term. And
it's scary because someone in the end, and I'm not here to say that nothing bad has ever happened with Tornado Cash, but I'm here to say that a developer made an open source piece of software. It's an open source code base, which then deployed as a smart contract. So how people use it's kind of out of their control to an extent. Mm-hmm. And well, not even to an extent, it's just out of their control. And this was something that, not to defend too terribly, but yeah, 10% of transactions were like laundering of money. But I don't know what the scale is with like the US dollar, but I imagine it's probably pretty similar. But it's a service that people also use for good, like Vitalik Buterin. He already publicly stated this, but he used it to donate to Ukraine, which otherwise might have put him in jeopardy because of his original nationality. Could have made him a target. So he did it for his safety. And for better or for worse, this person made a code base and they're in jail right now. And it's a shame because there's certain like developers directly in our ecosystem, probably some that I know that I've met. I'm pretty sure that others here have met as well. But great people, and what they're building is by no means evil. But to say that, well, if someone who maybe has evil intentions uses your tech, it subjects you to persecution. I think that's a very dangerous precedent.
Yes, yes, and for the principle of where we work in and what we're participating in now and building together,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's very detrimental if it goes the other way, goes the wrong way. It's super dangerous for sure. I have to agree on that point. I wanted to bring up something you mentioned before about this making a NFT of your code. How does that apply to the builders exactly? And we were talking about royalties and this tethered royalties for using an NFT or the or basically can builders be paid for their code through the longevity of it?
Yes. No, I'm very glad you asked that question. That my bad. It's like sometimes there's always a few points, like killer, like main points I really want to make, and I get excited, and then I go all over the place. Sometimes yeah, but no, yeah, incentivized open source code is something that I'm very excited for. It's one of the things that makes me, I guess, the most bullish about everything that we're building. Like there's so much potential in so many different industries and avenues. Because what we're doing, it's powerful. It's also broad. It can connect in all these different areas. But code and incentivized open source code is where I get really excited because there's a few different ways I could start this off. And I'll say first and foremost, let me say this. So apart from open source, there's the opposite, which there's private repositories and things like that. And what typically happens, and even at a much stronger level, I mean, there's patents and things of that nature. And so you ask yourself, if one of the spectrum is just here you go, world, use it, and the other end is the complete opposite, then why? Why do people make these decisions? And ultimately, the common denominator is money. If for a lot of people out there, if they're building something, the mindset is, if anyone's going to make money off this, it's me, and no one's going to steal this and make money off of it, and it's not me. That's typically the idea there. It's the exact idea when someone gets like a patent of sorts, because with that, they're just getting this like recognition of ownership over something, over IP, over an idea, over a product. But that's it. They're getting recognition, and then a lottery ticket, essentially, to where if someone ever does steal your idea and you find out about it, then you can come here and do something about it. And that's what it's for. And again, it all comes down to, what would you be going to court to do something about? You'd be going to court to get some money, and that's just that common denominator there in human nature. Now, whereas there's just a difference. There's some people truly are just, they could make something that could be maybe the most profitable thing in the world, but some people out there just truly just like, this is for the world, and they give it out there. And I think it's a really good thing, but there's differences with people's preferences. So this being understood, people pay for, when it comes to like paying for protection, sometimes they pay, it's on average like $15,000 for like patents and things like that. Anywhere between $10,000 and $50,000. But so with an average of 15,000, pay for protection, and it's pretty costly. So what we do is we propose an alternative. So save yourself $14,999. Put it back in your pocket. You can keep that, and instead, so we have our XCA protocol, which is a whole other talk. I gave a presentation about it on at Decoded. But just think trustless cross-chain file fingerprinting, tracking, authentication, and plagiarism detection. Boom. So the difference here is when you mint something, it doesn't cost you $15,000. And mind you, if you can pay even more money to be fast-tracked in at least the U.S. system, and that fast track takes a year. So instead of that, you can pay approximately, it'll actually be much lower than this. We're figuring out some fees. We want to get as many transactions to be get gasless transaction, no fees as possible. But instead of that, you pay approximately $1, and it'll be done in less than a minute. You can have that, and now you have more robust protection, because the difference here is you have the same proof of ownership with your ID, but now if someone, at least anywhere across Web3, and any connected using Oracle's any connected Web2 systems, if anyone were to plagiarize, which means we compute this essentially it's a hash print that we call it. But if there's these matches, it's detected, and at the least you are notified. In some systems, we can make it to where that asset just becomes a dud entirely, where you don't even have to worry. But the difference here is the level, I guess you could say, of service and protection you're getting is 100-fold more than anything that individual, like human run, like the government's able to do this. You can't do it. So it's very dynamic there. And coming back to the incentivized open source, so we have these IP tokens that I talked about before, and like this tethered ownership, tethered royalties, and everything. So I'll say this: we do believe that this is going to kind of make a flip in the system, to where beforehand, at least for some, it was quite rational to either hunker things down and keep it to yourself, you close source it, and just no one can see this. That's all you build out. Or you can go the extra mile. You can pay a bunch of money for like all the protection services, like patent registration, all that stuff. Or you can pay, it's like approximately $1. It's going to be less than that, but a fraction of the cost. And by doing this, you can mint your on-chain repositories, but connected with XDA, there's this protection there. And if anyone ever wanted to build on top of what you're building, I mean, the fear here, I guess, if we're being honest, is I don't want someone to steal what I'm doing and do something better. Well, if you're building something, you can have it open source. I mean, you can change it over time. Like if you just started, you can rank the thing up to 50%. Like if you wanted to, maybe even to disincentivize some people. But as you build, like when you have something, you build it, you can have like these set agreements, or they can change on a case by case basis if you preferred. But you can have it to where like, hey, here's my code base. Typically, if something's open source, it's just here's my code base and anyone can use it, and that's that. Otherwise, there's agreements and there's a whole process, and it's not trustless. There's usually lawyers and stuff involved, and it's just messy. It takes a while, and it's very costly. Instead of all of that, you just have your code base open source and have it to where like, hey, anyone can do this. And in fact, I hope you do make money, because if you do make money, this X% of royalties is mine. And you could have code base, you could have 10 different people build on top of it. And let's say 7 of the things they build are just awful. But you could have 2 or 3 of those things be truly amazing, or one of them just be spectacular. And that right there now creates this residual like income flow for that developer that otherwise just was not a possibility in Web 2. So now you have all these individuals. It's more than ever before. It's more incentivizing. It's actually incentivizing to release open source code, because even though it's still in the good nature of open source, it actually accommodates just human need, and that is income through this process, which, again, I think it's really powerful, and it's really empowering, and it's going to be powerful for innovation and collaboration, because I think it'll help to induce a bit more of that. You're going to see hopefully more open source code, more people building on top of other things, and just more and more really just cool stuff coming about in the world.
For sure. I could definitely see the parallels with Astar Network as well. We have DApp staking. We want to incentivize builders, and we want them to create a community that will stake on top of them, share the rewards with their community. So there is definitely an incentive and similarities.
Well,
for
actually,
sure.
well, it's like that's one thing like I really love about Astar is I've mentioned like the few times I get to talk with Soda at events. He's usually very busy, understandably so. But like take a step back. If you were to look at like innovation as like a philosophical concept, but just look at innovation from start to, I don't really know if finish is a thing. It's, because that could just go on forever. But let's say start to finish, there is opportunity to receive funding, income support at every single level of this process when you combine things such as InvArch and Astar. I mean, everything from when like you're literally like you don't have a smart, you're just getting things going, or even if it's not a smart contract. But then, especially with Shyness, like there's a lot of great support there for when people are more serious getting things going. There's a lot of like community-driven support there. Then on Astar Network, when they deploy those smart contracts, and again, if something is of good use, then what happens is now they have this ability to keep like that funding to keep it going, and they could also have at the same time like dual avenues of support funding like coming in. You could have like maintenance of like code base of the project, whatever, on GitArch, which could be receiving funding through our OSIF protocol. But then at the same time, deployed smart contract, which is all connected. Deployed smart contract on Astar Network, which is if it's staked, then that could be an opportunity for them as well. So when you combine these systems, I mean, the whole picture from start to finish, there's an opportunity, and there's even where the points where there is an overlap. It's far from a competitive thing. It's just dual opportunity, which is, I think, awesome.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's what's the beauty about this space and being on Polkadot as well, and testing on Kusama. It allows us to sort of experiment with this. How can we combine these forces now to create even more incentive for people to come over to Dot Sama and build? So I think this is super exciting. Just even thinking about it, especially if we get the right message across to the developers out there, even the Web 2 ones. Here at Astar, we do want to combine these Web 2 plus Web 3, not disregard them for sure because they bring a lot of experience, and we just want to show them how powerful Web 3, this ownership, and especially if it's in a decentralized, censorship resistant manner, as some of the topics we're talking about here. But Dakota, I am going to move forward with some of the other topics because there's so much to talk about.
I'm
and
ready.
then, yeah, and we know there's going to be tracking of the files, authentication, royalties attached to all what you're building. Can you tell us a little bit about the utility that Astar token can have on InvArch network or even GitArch? Yeah.
No, great question, actually. So that's actually like a really cool thing. So like I was saying before, so an individual can, from GitArch, can deploy directly onto any chain, but then also have like maintenance treasuries that are in place. There's maintenance treasuries, and then there's just funding for like supporting those code bases as well through our OSIF protocol. So now we're very open to this. Like we have our Tinker token, and eventually like the Varch token apply for these things. And some things are token specific, but I just think it'd be awesome if, let's say, if Astar, if that's the bag you hold, if that's your thing, if you want to support a project using that token, whether it's on Astar or whether it's on InvArch for the code base, if that's something that you want to do, if this is the exchange that you're interested in because you are an Astar builder, let's say this is a bit more, you might have a little interest in having some Thinker, but really like Astar's jam, that's where you're deploying at, that's what you want, then that's what individuals should be able to support you with. And in the future, that's something that we'd very much like to see. We would like to see developers, so any chain that GitArch is connected to, we would like it at least provide the opportunity for those builders to also be supported using the token from those networks, for two reasons. One, I think it's always a nice boost if it's able to like further like help. I'd say like the partnering network. So just adding more utility on top of what they already have. I think that's like obviously who doesn't like that. But more importantly, is it's just the efficiency, the user experience of this. If I were a user, imagine this is really where most of my problems came from when I first got into blockchain, and I didn't know, I knew nothing, like I was just figuring stuff out. I would go on to certain dApps and things like that, and I'd go to use them, and there'd just be services that just didn't exist, and I was just like, why? And and this is what really drew me to Polkadot's interoperability, and everything was because they couldn't exist. But if I were an individual and I was hopping on this, then if someone's building on Astar and there's this code base, this maintenance code base, I want to do two things. I want to support like the smart contract and keeping that going, providing income. But I mean, hey, I may want to donate, do an on-chain donation using Astar as well, which is a feature of ours, on-chain donations.
Thanks for great explanation. Yeah, I definitely see um, the potential right there for sure. And moving forward with all this interoperability, working together, cohesiveness within our ecosystem. Uh, Tell us a little bit about the Taoist CDK. I know personally, I've learned a little bit more being in Udall, but for our listeners, how could it be applied to, let's say, an Astar project or an NFT project that's creating their own DAO? What would be, the benefits of it?
Okay, so yeah, this is exciting. So, well, I did mention earlier that the Dallas CDK is being used, like showcased through the Udall's NFT collection. It's that's just the ability to showcase it. It's really powerful for truly anybody who wants to set up a DAO, to launch a DAO, and because of the interconnectedness of these systems, like even other chains, projects in the space, like anyone in the world can use this, but if you happen to be a builder, then there definitely are some more like there's some sweet little caveats that you're able to tap into. But just bringing things back, I'll say this is really powerful for all builders, whether on Astar or anywhere in the space, because what you're able to do is have this system, and again, it's a very familiar system that people are used to, which is Discord. It's where everyone kind of congregates already. It's where all the the quote DAOs exist today. But really, there's congregations. It's just the one place that most people know to, but it's as most people see it, they're like, that's all we got. So why not just keep going to it and hop on Discord like usual? But all matters of governance can be handled through this UI. So if I mean, I can give an example for a specific DAO, but I also give an example over like an entire parachain's governance could be run through this as well, which would be pretty powerful one day. But it's really cool because what you're able to do is truly customize things like in every layer possible. So just like in Discord, you have roles and you have channels, and the roles have certain permissions. You're able to do this, you're able to have access to these channels, and then the channels alternatively have certain restrictions, to where only people that match these parameters have access. Now, using the Daoist CDK, what you can do is have a more trustless or more transparent system over this, to where, and like I said before, even ownership over the Discord server itself is decentralized. We call it a fat bot. It's a bot that is launched using a Fala network, what's called a fat contract, for off-chain computation. Launched using that, but then the fat contract is actually owned by an IP set, which is an NFT primitive on the InvArch network, and Tinkernet in this case, which is owned. So that's IP set owns the contract, which is the bot, which owns the server. So it's like this big ownership proxy, but the ownership over the IP set can be completely fractionalized, decentralized through these pegged IP tokens. And there's a new concept that we're bringing to Web3, and it's multi-class fungible tokens. It's really cool stuff. But so we're used to, let's say, an NFT, and it is decentralized because to it is a million of these tokens. But it's a catch-all. Like those tokens are everything. The governance rights. It's literally one size fits all. No matter what the purpose is of the DAO, it's their financial medium of exchange. It's everything. Which for some like cool, but there's a lot of restrictions when it comes to that. But with these multi-class fungible tokens, like imagine you have an IP token, which represents ownership, but then you have sub tokens. They can all be different and all have their different quantities. They can work together in some way or not at all. So you can have a Discord server, and you can have tokens that represent, let's say, ownership. You can bond these tokens. Here's another really cool utility for the Astar token. Let's say I'm just going to imagine, say if you're just doing like the whole whole shebang. You could bond the tokens to the Astar token, to where now the Astar token is the equivalent of this thing's governance token, or it could just be its own token, a new thing. Entirely up to you. But then you can set up different groups, and what we don't have today in DAOs is like this multi-layer governance. So let's say if you have researchers, you have marketers, you have financial analysts, you have developers. In DAOs today, everyone has a vote. I mean, it could be on, like, the vote could literally be, should we perform this runtime upgrade? And it's a blob of code, and 99% of everyone in that DAO could have no idea what they're looking at, but they all get to vote on it. And it's kind of an issue. With the DAO CDK, it's not an issue anymore. We have a very, very advanced, very fluid multi-sig solution that we implement through the DAO CDK. It allows, it's very seamless, very, very simple and easy, being able to structure individual different groups and recognize individuals through these IP tokens, who has access in which groups, how much voting weight they have in those individual groups, how much voting weight they have in the entire DAO. Those can be separate metrics. To where now you have domain specific bodies, which are still domains. They're domain specific but decentralized bodies. It's like pods, as I think Vitalik is. You have all these pods, which are then able to very efficiently and effectively work on their tasks as part of this larger decentralized autonomous organization, and they're able to, again, do everything more efficiently, contribute to this larger picture, and this goes for teams as well. That way you can have decentralized management over a project, but you don't necessarily have your head of marketing or just your marketing guys having like a vote on this specific line of code, because they maybe just have no idea what it does, compared to developers having a say because they are more attuned to this language. And applying this just outside of tech as well, just imagine that, like in finance, when you have like any type of like investment type of like funding like that, typically you have analysts, you have different bodies who are specialists, they're in different fields. If you were reviewing a medical based project, you probably, I mean, not to dismiss the guy, but your expert on architecture is probably not like the main dude you want. You probably want like a medical body to have like the ultimate say when it comes to, is this a practical project, before which they can vote on that, which can then elevate the vote to like a broader decision. But now there's this like this quality like assurance possibilities through decision making processes as well. So things become a lot more effective and a lot more efficient. And yeah, like I said, it's all trustless, transparent. All these calls are able to be performed using Discord, which are multi-sig, and it's through the bots, but it's all through that familiar UI that people already know. And this can be used towards anything, whether it's a code base, a repository, or an actual it's like an organization with more business interests in mind. But no matter what the need is, it's very flexible. The multi-sig capabilities are really awesome. You can even revoke ownership. It goes all out. But yeah, looking forward to releasing more details more and more, especially over the next couple of weeks.
Plot twist, Dakota. I work for Discord, and I'm going to take you to court to make sure that never happens on our platform.
Oof. Censorship.
Censorship, boom.
Yeah.
But
So
thanks for
choice.
the added
You guys said
utility
you were going
for
to work on the
Astar.
light client solution after this one? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Adding the extra utility for the Astar token as well could incentivize or bring in a lot of people too, a lot of groups into what you're building with this CDK. Sorry. So, Jared, sorry, you were saying something.
well, I think you pretty much said what I was thinking. Like, you could see new utility for the Astar token, on GitArch, because RDAP staking, we're supporting our builders to, build what you want. You pick and choose through kind of a democratic way who you want to support. And on GitArch, your code's kind of, being supported as well. So I do see true ownership and decentralization, through DApp staking, and I guess, I don't know what you would call it, like super code, unstoppable code. Like
Super, I like that. Yeah. Unstoppable code.
Yeah, it's kind of awesome. I see how they're both going, which, I mean, that's pretty cool. We're all about devs here. I don't really have too much more than that. I just see, I don't know. Do you have anything there, Rams?
Yeah, you're supporting all these shadowy supercoders, and I think we,
Super coders.
I think we are shaping the devs, and the coders are shaping, this world that we're partaking in. So all the support, decentralized support that we could give them is needed, and I think that's what Astar is focusing on now. I think one of Gabe with the square profile is in there,
I love
helping
it.
form this through. Hopefully, we receive some support from not just our devs in Astar, but all around the ecosystem on Polkadot. And here we're creating a space with the Shiden DAO as well to sort of create that chaos. Expected but now created. And I think this tech, Dakota, that you're talking about, could really, really, give a platform also for that chaos that we
Well,
want to create.
yeah, I'm excited to kind of see how that's, especially with, Gabe and all the ideas that are coming there, how that's going to play into Shiden, because that's
Mhm.
where you can have some value and really play around and, see what we can build.
And then I also just want to say I'm also very excited looking towards that future because, and I've told so to this myself personally, had a little vibe over it, but I truly do see Astar as building it's not just a buzzword. It's not just nice. It doesn't just sound good. When Astar says we're building the future of smart contracts, I truly do believe that because it's like someone who also took kind of like a long view forward when he decided to make his plans one day. As someone who did that with InvArch and everything, I 100% see that with Soda and everything that he's built. Because when we first started, at first some people were like, huh, is this? Some people were confused, but then some people were like, is this would people actually want these type of things? And then a year later, everyone's like, hell yeah, we do, and talking about it a lot. It's been really awesome. But just with that, building Wasm, smart contracts for Wasm is going to be the future of smart contracts. It's not that Solidity is going away necessarily. Um, I'm pretty sure, technically speaking, someone out there still codes in BASIC, but the point is, and Astar accommodates that as well. But you guys are really building this infrastructure and this foundation with a long term approach to things that is designed to, I really do believe, be very future proof. And it's this system, not just where it's amazing because you could have just been a network that is designed for the future to be able to deploy dApps built for the future, built using WASM. But you took it a step further and said, we're not just going to build for the future. We're gonna also provide a foundation that can continuously support and nurture that future, that's through dApp staking. And I just think that's a really awesome thing that you guys are doing.
Yeah, that's why I'm here also as well, and hopefully connecting with other teams to create this together, not just in a siloed, environment. And that's what Polkadot is also one of the greatest layer zeros that I can imagine, and hopefully spread this all our tech throughout the space because I really do feel personally that it's valuable, not just to us but the builders of the future. Dakota, thanks so much again. Um, I wanted to invite Dustin up here. I don't know if he's been taking notes. If he wants to request, feel free as a as a fellow yodeler. If he yodels, that would be a one way to end this whole show. But no pressure.
So I will say, I'm a side note, while Dustin may or may not be getting
Mhm.
ready, I don't know. He could be sitting there like, guys, stop. But I do just want to shout out to anyone here, anyone who is a UDL holder, supporter. Just thank you. Thank you very, very much. To be honest, we didn't anticipate the collection selling out. We're very modest builders. We love the tech, but I don't know. We're not. People say gig of rain, but our heads are quite small when it comes to our own perspectives. And so with that, we had we're like, yeah, there's going to be this burn events. We had already projected our assumption. Yeah, there's going to be plenty of tickets left over. And that now they're not. They're all gone. And with all of that, I just want to say really awesome and thank you to everyone. But like just it's crazy because when I say we're just getting started, I literally mean that was we were just getting started. All we did was we shared the thread on the DAO CDK of what's to come. So when I say that we have so much planned for the future and rolling things out and just there's going to come these times where people are trading and they have their utils, they have these trade accessories, but then people are actually using the tech. And when people, there's going to be this really empowering sense of empowerment that comes from being a member of Udall DAO. I do believe Recraft to be a very rewarding experience, but more importantly, it's very empowering. Just something that will, if you want it and it's there, if you contribute, something that could just be a very dynamic part of your life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dakota. Yes, not financial advice, of course, but me being a holder as well, I'm interested in being surrounded by builders like yourself and others to collaborate as well. So Astar definitely recognizes builders. We're there to support as well. WASM is the future. We do, like you said, Dakota, we do want to also nurture these builders. So any way we could contribute, I'm sure we're going to keep talking with the team and seeing what kind of experiments we're going to do together. So super exciting in overall. Thanks again, Dakota. Any last words?
I just like I said, thank you very, very much for having me on your Twitter space. A lot of admiration for not just everything that you guys are building on the technical front, but just also the community that you guys have built up and you guys have been nurturing. I'm a huge fan of Astar, and I'm very excited for the future. There's a lot of strong collaboration that I foresee. A lot of awesome things. Like, we definitely hope so, because and all those smart contract deployment examples, I always there's other all these different chains, but man, I do love Astar. I love something that is future proof. So I am looking forward to what we have for the future and everything, and maybe one day even getting connected with everyone here in the space one day, or maybe have you guys come over one day.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Dakota. And thank you, listeners, for stopping by. We hope you enjoy the informational talk.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.